Content warning. This video is about a sensitive topic involving loss of life. We've removed any graphic content to comply with YouTube's guidelines. We aim to provide informative, factual journalism on a tragic event in the public interest that does not dismiss its seriousness. All clips are used under the doctrine of fair use for news reporting and analysis. Oaklee Mae Snow was born on March 10, 2021 in Oklahoma to parents Madison Marshall and Zachary Snow. She had a little brother who was about 15 months younger than her, that we'll be referring to as CS for the remainder of the story. In fact, there are many individuals who have had their names redacted in court documents. We will be referring to them by their initials only. Madison and Zachary were not living together at the time. Zachary had his own place in Cromwell, Oklahoma, while 22-year-old Madison was in a romantic relationship with 25-year-old Roan Waters. She was also living with Roan at his house in Cromwell. In February of 2022, Roan was released from an Indiana prison after serving almost 4 years. He'd been convicted of a burglary stemming from a 2018 incident in Shelby County.
On October 26, 2022, Madison contacted the Okfuskee County Sheriff's Office to report that Roan had attacked her. She told them he hit Oaklee in the face during a fight the day before, and when Madison tried to step in to protect her daughter, Roan struck her in the head. Deputies responded to Roan's Cromwell address and knocked on the door. He opened it and asked if they had a warrant. Before they could answer, he slammed the door in their faces. The deputies tried to explain through the door that they were there for a welfare check, but Roan started yelling at them to leave. As they turned back to their patrol cars, a blue SUV pulled up beside them. Inside were Madison, Oaklee, and CS, who was 3 months old at the time. Roan saw Madison talking with deputies and went outside. He began yelling so loudly that they couldn't hear what Madison was saying from the SUV. He then turned on loud music to further drown out their conversation. Madison tried to convince the deputies that she and her children were fine, and so deputies eventually left. Later that day, Zachary called the sheriff's office to say Madison now wanted to file a formal report. Deputies went to Zachary's father's home and met Madison, who was there with Oaklee and CS. Madison explained that on October 25th, Roan had slapped Oaklee in the mouth because she was crying. She lifted Oaklee's lips so deputies could see the cut inside. Madison said she confronted Roan after he hit Oaklee, and he slapped her across the left side of her face. Deputies saw the bruising around her left eyelid and cheek, and so they took photographs of both her and Oaklee's injuries. They documented everything to send to the county prosecutor for possible charges. Madison did not want to press charges against Roan for hitting her, but instead asked to have them filed against Roan for what he did to Oaklee. Around November 7th, the district court issued a warrant for Roan's arrest on the charges of CA, DV, and battery in the presence of a minor.
On January 19, 2023, Madison and Roan picked up Oaklee and CS from Zachary's home and left without his permission. As soon as he realized the kids were gone, he reported them missing. According to Zachary, Madison and Roan were planning to stay with Roan's mother and sister in Indiana, along with the kids. As the result of his report, Oaklee and CS ended up being listed in the National Crime Information Center database as missing persons. Authorities in Seminole County quickly got involved, launching an investigation into where the pair had taken the children. They pieced together that Madison and Roan had fled the state entirely, crossing into Indiana with both kids. Once there, they stayed in a house on Albany Street just south of downtown Indianapolis. The house was owned by Roan's mother, BP, who let them stay and even bought baby formula and other items they needed to take care of the kids. Neighbors around Albany Street remembered the house as being full of trouble for years. One said that he suspected drugs were being sold there, describing the constant fights and arguing, but he admitted he had no idea that children were living there.
Apart from Roan, Madison, and the children, another man referred to as Chad lived in the home. He said he had been friends with Roan and lived in the house off and on during that time. He described Roan and Madison as heavy drug users who would snort heroin and nod off for long periods of time. He said they didn't pay much attention to the kids and often left them in front of the TV all day. Never saw them show any love or care. He also remembered seeing bruises on Oaklee's leg. Roan's sister, known in official documents as KW, remembered seeing Oaklee and the baby CS when Roan and Madison first brought them to Indianapolis. At the time, she also noticed bruises along Oaklee's legs. She asked the couple about the marks. They became angry and forced her to leave. According to Madison, while they were in Indiana, Roan often used harsh punishment on Oaklee for what he considered to be bad behavior. Even small things like holding a fork the wrong way or wetting her diaper would set him off in a rage. He would hit her regularly, and on some occasions, he even squeezed her neck until she went limp. Madison also explained that whenever she tried to step in to protect Oaklee, Roan would turn violent towards her as well. She claimed that Oaklee began refusing food whenever Roan was around her because he would become angry if she did not eat quickly enough. On February 8, 2023, Madison reached out to Roan's older brother, known as BW, about his behavior towards Oaklee. BW recalled going to the house on Albany Street and seeing bruises on the toddler. He said he immediately went after Roan because he believed he was the only one who could have hurt her. They fought briefly on the front lawn before BW left without the issue being resolved. He admitted he never called the police or DCS about what he saw that day.
On the morning of February 9, 2023, Madison recalled that she and Roan were woken up by Oaklee's crying. She said that Roan threw Oaklee to the ground, causing her to hit her head, leaving a red bump above her right eye. Madison tried to help hide the bruise with her makeup. Chad recalled seeing Oaklee as he entered the house. He picked her up and noticed she had makeup on her eyes and mouth, something he had never seen before. It looked like an adult had put it on. He also saw a bruise-like line running from her bottom lip to her chin. After that, he left the house.
Madison claimed that she was in the kitchen when she heard Roan in the living room shouting at Oaklee to keep bouncing on her hopper ball. Concerned, Madison stepped in to see Roan towering over Oaklee as the little girl struggled to bounce like he wanted her to because she was too small for it. Madison watched Roan lay down on the couch and she returned to the kitchen. Only moments later, she heard him panicking while yelling Oaklee's name. When she rushed out, she found Roan standing in the hallway clutching Oaklee in his arms. She was limp and unresponsive. Roan kept repeating that he had not done anything and it was not his fault. He would not let Madison take Oaklee to the hospital and began undressing the child. Madison saw Oaklee's chest expanding as she struggled to breathe, but bloody saliva dripped from her mouth with each labored breath. Madison said she tried to call 911 when she realized Oaklee was dying, but Roan hit her hard enough to knock the phone away and disconnected the call. Once Madison got her phone back, she called Chad and asked him to come home because something had happened to Oaklee. As soon as he entered the house, Chad said that he knew he should have never left. Like many terrible parents and caregivers that we've covered on this channel, Roan tried to put Oaklee in a cold bath to revive her, but obviously it didn't work. He then wrapped her in a pink and black blanket with hearts on it and put her in the back seat of his Dodge Durango. One neighbor saw Roan and Madison leaving the house carrying something that looked like a child wrapped in a blanket, and the child did not appear to be moving. By the time they were in the car, Oaklee had stopped breathing and her lips had turned blue. She didn't have a heartbeat anymore and her skin was cold to the touch. After noticing that her eyes weren't moving either, Madison sat in the back seat with Oaklee and held her daughter's hand for one last time.
Madison climbed into the front with Roan, who drove them out of Indianapolis towards Martinsville. They traveled winding roads to a rundown building on a hill, which allegedly belonged to Roan's grandparents. Roan parked on a gravel road and carried Oaklee inside through a window while Madison waited in the car. Madison had asked Roan to take Oaklee to the hospital, but Roan told her if they went, she would go to prison. While Roan went into the house with Oaklee, Madison did 2 lines of fentanyl. Roan returned with just the blanket that she had been wrapped in and then drove home, telling Madison he left Oaklee either inside or under a dresser. When she asked where they were, he said Martinsville was all she needed to know. According to Madison, Roan told her he didn't need to kill her now after he was sure that she wouldn't tell anybody about what happened. They both decided that they would tell everyone that they left Oaklee at the hospital. Later that day, Chad saw Roan briefly stop by at his mother's workplace. Roan seemed anxious and left after a short conversation with her.
Early in the afternoon on February 9th, Roan sent a text to his brother simply saying he needed him. BW decided not to respond. After this, Chad decided to go see him directly. Remember BW getting a call from their mother later that day and she sounded really upset. BW snapped back, saying he didn't know what Roan was doing, but that they all needed to handle it themselves, after which he hung up. Now, CS, who mind you, was just a baby at the time, was eventually found abandoned in the house on Albany Street. Chad called BP, telling her that the couple had left CS with him and asked her to pick him up. BP went to take the baby and then asked KW to take care of him because she had to go back to work. KW asked him why he left CS behind. He explained to her that Oaklee had gotten hurt while bouncing on a ball and they needed to rush her to the hospital. His sister then went from hospital to hospital trying to find any trace of Oaklee, but none of them had any record of her being there. KW, rightfully so, felt worried about CS's safety at the Albany Street house and asked her husband to come pick them up so she could take care of the baby at her own home. About 15 minutes later, her husband showed up. Roan and Madison returned to the house at the same time. KW didn't see Oaklee and chose not to speak with Roan or Madison before leaving the house with CS. Later that night, KW asked DCS, and DCS is not a person, we're talking about child services, to take custody of the baby and told them Roan's story about taking Oaklee to the hospital. She told the investigators that she didn't believe Roan and Madison could have taken Oaklee to the closest hospital and gotten back in such a short amount of time. Additionally, Roan and Madison told her that they had decided to give Oaklee up in Indianapolis. They said they handled the situation, but they wouldn't elaborate on what happened or where they gave Oaklee up. This made KW worried about Oaklee's well-being. That night, Chad returned to the house on Albany Street. He saw Roan and Madison there, but neither of the children were around. Both of them looked so high on drugs that they were barely functioning. After that, witnesses claimed that both Madison and Roan went to Colorado. The last time KW saw Madison was on March 3rd when she showed up at her home asking if she could stay there. KW said she would only let her stay if she told her where Oaklee was. Madison refused and left on foot, and KW did not see or talk to her again after that.
Later that day on March 3rd, police in Greenwood Village, Colorado arrested Roan on an outstanding warrant from November of 2022 after responding to a complaint at a Best Western hotel. When they got there, they found Roan, but Madison wasn't present. Inside the hotel room, there were no signs of the children or anything to suggest that kids had been there at all. Police questioned Roan about what happened to the missing children, and he explained that he and Madison took them from Oklahoma to Indianapolis. He went on to admit that he and Madison brought the children to a trap house so they could use drugs. Roan explained that they chose to leave CS behind and said they left Oaklee somewhere in Indiana, refusing to share any specifics.
In the days that followed, Detective Craig Tangeman of the Arapahoe County Sheriff's Office helped Greenwood Village investigators review Roan's recorded calls while he was waiting to be sent back to Oklahoma. Roan often spoke with his mother during this time. On those calls, he admitted to her that he had lied to the police and had really been there when the kids were abandoned. He even said he had helped Madison leave Oaklee somewhere, though he didn't explain exactly where he left her. BP told him that Madison now had his cell phone. She told Roan that she planned to change her name, but she didn't say what new name she would use. She said she had gotten in touch with his mother after his arrest and asked her advice on what to do next. Together, they decided that Roan's older brother and his wife would travel to Colorado to bring Madison back to Indianapolis. Madison said that his mother was the one making all the arrangements for her. They did not talk at all about where Oaklee or CS, the baby, might be. BP explained she agreed to help Madison get back to Indiana because she didn't think that she had anyone else to help her. In reality, she was helping Madison so that she wouldn't get caught and Roan wouldn't end up in prison again.
However, Oaklee was still missing. Reporters interviewed her father, Zachary. He said he could not imagine wanting something like this to happen, even to the person he hated the most. He explained how he had spent every single day and night on his phone, reaching out and trying to connect with anyone who might have any clue about where Oaklee was. At around 4:30 p.m. on March 6th, investigators reached out to the FBI office in Indianapolis asking for help locating Oaklee and Madison. On March 7th, the Indianapolis police executed a search warrant at the house on Albany Street. They found lots of baby items on the first floor, including clothes, toys, a playpen, a rocker, unused diapers, and other childcare items. The forensic technicians found no clear evidence of a crime scene, so nothing was collected at the time. Detective Eric Parrish and one of the investigators spoke separately with a neighbor near the house. She said she remembered a cleaning or work crew coming to the house sometime in February. They painted and moved things out, including a roll of carpet. They were there late into the night, and while she was not sure of the exact date, she thought it was around the same time as the Super Bowl. She told the police that if they were looking for evidence, it was probably gone by now.
On March 8, 2023, the court approved a warrant to get call logs for Roan and Chad's phone numbers. They also approved a ping warrant to track Roan's phone to help find Madison. That same day, the court also approved a warrant to seize and search the Dodge Durango that Roan had used. Police and FBI recovered the SUV from outside BW's house. When they got there, BW's wife, DW, told them she had just cleaned out the inside of the vehicle the day before because it smelled strongly of animal feces. Police impounded the SUV at the IMPD Animal Control Center before the search. The next day, Detective Anthony Weaver walked a trained cadaver dog around the vehicle. The dog signaled that human remains might have been inside. Crime Lab then searched the interior and found what looked like dried blood in the back compartment. They cut out the cushion material and took it in for evidence.
On March 9, 2023, investigators talked to DW. She said that she had gone with her husband to Colorado earlier in the month to bring back Roan's Dodge Durango. BP, her mother-in-law, paid for them all to fly out around March 2, 2023. When they arrived, they took an Uber to a Best Western hotel where they met Madison. Madison handed over the keys and all three of them drove back to Indianapolis. Shortly after they started driving, DW saw Madison throw her phone out of the window. Later on, Madison told her that she never really wanted Oaklee and tried to explain how hard it was being a mom. She also said she planned to go to North Carolina to be with someone named Nick. Investigators then talked to BW, her husband. When they got back to Indianapolis with Madison, he dropped her off near Troy Avenue and Shelby Street. He got back in touch with her on March 4, 2023. She did not have a phone, but he found her hanging around a nearby business. BW picked her up around 5:30 p.m. and took her to the Greyhound bus station on Illinois Street. He said he paid about $180 in cash for a one-way ticket to Fayetteville, North Carolina. BW described Madison as having dyed her hair black. She was only carrying a couple of bags when she left. He did not know who she was meeting or where she was staying in North Carolina.
On March 12, 2023, Special Agent Len Rothermich spoke with Zachary, who said Madison had a close friend living in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Around the same time, AT&T returned Roan's phone records. Special Agent Nicole Robertson found many calls on February 9th between Roan's number, Chad's number, and BP's number. AT&T also provided location pings. Detective Tangeman and other officers found the phone, which was an iPhone 14, abandoned at the front desk of the Econo Lodge in Lyman, Colorado around March 3rd. The iPhone was then placed in the FBI Denver property room for transfer to Indianapolis. On March 13th, Zachary called back with new information. It said Madison had recently taken a bus to Fayetteville. Searching Madison's three Facebook profiles, Maddie Marshall Bunny, and Maddie Cooper, he found a mutual friend who lived near Fayetteville. He said Madison would likely stay with or confide in this friend. The FBI identified the friend's real name and likely address in Bladenboro, North Carolina, about 45 minutes south of Fayetteville.
On March 14th, investigators, including Agent Rothermich, went to the Greyhound bus station. Employees let them access security footage, and they reviewed the video from 7:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. on March 4th. They spotted a woman matching Madison's description entering with a man resembling BW. Madison was seen inside using a phone while BW waited. On March 16th, the court issued a warrant for Madison's arrest for neglect of a dependent under Indiana law. On March 17th, Agent Rothermich asked the FBI's Fayetteville office for help. Task Force Officer Lynn Gralewski Alley went to Madison's friend's home in Bladenboro but couldn't reach her. She called a possible number, but her friend was evasive and denied recent contact with Madison or knowing about Oaklee's whereabouts. On March 18th, Zachary called again, saying he found another Facebook account Madison was using, named Bunny Cooper. He was sure it was Madison's account. On March 23rd, FBI agents from the Charlotte field office found Madison at her friend's residence in Bun Level, North Carolina. When arrested, she was read her rights, she said she understood, and signed the waiver form. Oaklee's location was still unknown at that time. According to the investigating officer, it was believed that she was dead and her body had been disposed of. Roan's sister, KW, told police that she feared the same.
On April 20th, around 4:20 p.m., and yes, that is the correct date and time, we didn't make that up, Madison was officially booked into the Marion County Jail on 2 counts of neglect of a dependent. There she eventually admitted to what had happened. On April 21st, while crying and shaking, she led officers back to an empty house near Martinsville, Indiana, around 25 miles from Indianapolis. Investigators noticed ruts in the paved road at the bottom of the hill where something heavy had been dragged. The house was made of rotting wood with trash piled inside. As they searched, they smelled the sour odor of decomposition, strongest near a wooden dresser against the living room wall. They secured a warrant to search the house for Oaklee. Indiana State Police crime scene investigator Eric Russell arrived and began to take pictures of the scene. When he checked the dresser, he found the decomposing remains of a small child in the bottom drawer. Part of the dresser had to be removed to avoid disturbing the remains. They were of a young girl with blonde hair in a ponytail, a broken left leg folded over her chest, and a blue and white sock still on her foot. The coroner, Mike Ellis, supervised the recovery, and they transported the drawer with the body still inside to avoid damage. Investigators planned to test for DNA. On April 24th, Coroner Ellis explained that DNA testing would take somewhere between 2 to 4 weeks to complete. On April 26th, both Roan and Madison faced charges connected to Oaklee's death. Roan was charged with murder, an array of neglect charges, and battery resulting in injury to a victim under 14. Madison was charged with all the same neglect counts, except she didn't receive murder or battery charges. Instead, she was charged with assisting a criminal, which is a level 5 felony.
On May 12, 2023, the Morgan County Coroner's Office confirmed that the remains found inside the dresser of the abandoned home in Martinsville belonged to Oaklee. Coroner Ellis said the DNA testing showed a 99.9% match. In an email to the Indy Star, he explained that his office had received a final report from the Indiana State Police Lab confirming those DNA results. Morgan County officials then informed the family, as well as the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department. By June 14, 2023, the Morgan County Coroner's Office officially ruled that Oaklee had died by unspecified means. Prosecutor Ryan Mears described Oaklee's life as one filled with distress from the adults who should have protected her.
However, the case never went to trial. On May 1st, 2025, Madison entered a guilty plea to the neglect charges. She also agreed to testify against Roan. As part of her plea agreement, Madison was sentenced to a minimum of 25 years in prison. On May 28th, Roan pled guilty to neglect of a dependent resulting in death and 2 lesser neglect charges. His murder charge was dropped as part of the plea deal. At a sentencing hearing on June 13, 2025, Roan was sentenced to 45 years in prison. Oaklee's father, Zachary, shared the following post on Facebook, which read, "Today was a real stressful, heart-wrenching day. I didn't think it was going to be as hard as it was to sit in front of the 2 people that killed my beautiful daughter and not act a fool. I literally felt my heart beating in my eyes. This woman I've got by my side is so awesome, understanding, and supportive. I don't know what I would do without you, Alyssa. We made the best out of one of the worst days of my life."
Prosecutor Mears spoke about how deeply unsettling this case was. He explained it broke his heart because the people who were supposed to care for and protect this child ended up failing her completely. He talked about the way her body was thrown away without any care, saying it showed none of the respect every person deserves, especially a small child. Zachary spoke with reporters, saying how much it hurt and how it was something no decent man would ever want to go through. A close family friend also shared a message with reporters. They said everyone was heartbroken over what happened to Oaklee. They felt numb and couldn't find the right words. The pain her family and those close to her were feeling was impossible to explain. They promised to always keep Oaklee in their hearts. She didn't deserve what happens, and they were fighting for justice. They asked for continued prayers for her family and loved ones, calling it a nightmare they sadly wouldn't be able to wake up from.